Listen, kid. One day, you'll do the same for someone else. Trust me. I didn't understand those words at the time. I was just a 12-year-old boy, too wrapped up in my own little world to think about kindness, fate, or the invisible threads that connect us all. But looking back, I realized that single moment shaped the course of my entire life. It was the summer of 1963, in a small town in Ohio. Life was simple. Kids ran barefoot down the streets, neighbors borrowed sugar from one another, and the local shop owners knew everyone by name. My family didn't have much, but we got by. My dad worked long shifts at the mill, my mom stretched every dollar like it was made of rubber, and I spent my time dreaming. And all my dreams revolved around one thing, a bicycle. Not just any bicycle, but the bicycle, the sleek red Schwinn sitting in Mr. Henry's shop window. It was perfect, with chrome handlebars that gleamed in the sunlight and a leather seat that looked like it was meant for adventure. To me, that bike wasn't just a toy. It was freedom. It was speed. It was a ticket to the open road, where I could be the fastest kid in town. But that bike cost money we didn't have. Every day after school, I made my usual stop at Mr. Henry's shop, pressing my nose against the glass like a kid staring into a world he could never touch. Mr. Henry, an old man with thick glasses and a permanent scent of oil and rubber, would chuckle as he wiped down the counter. "Still dreaming, Sam?" I grinned. One day. But deep down, I wasn't sure if one day would ever come. Then one afternoon, everything changed. I ran to the shop like I always did, but this time my heart dropped. The window was empty. The bike was gone. I just stood there, staring at that vacant space, feeling like someone had punched me in the gut. Someone had bought it. Some other lucky kid was probably riding it right now, wind in their hair, living my dream. Mr. Henry must have seen my face because he called out, "Sam, come inside." I dragged my feet through the door, expecting nothing more than another reminder that life wasn't fair. But then, Mr. Henry pointed to the back of the shop. There it was, the same red Schwinn, except now there was a tag hanging from the handlebars. My name was written on it. I blinked. "Wait, what?" Mr. Henry smiled. "It's yours, Sam." I shook my head. "But how?" "I didn't. Someone bought it for you." I stared at him, then at the bike, then back at him. "Who?" Mr. Henry just shrugged. "They didn't want you to know. It didn't make sense. My parents couldn't afford it. None of my friends had that kind of money. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was some kind of joke." I reached out, hesitantly running my fingers over the handlebars, half expecting it to vanish under my touch. But it was real. "Go on," Mr. Henry said, grinning. "Take it for a spin." I didn't need to be told twice. I jumped on, pedaling out of the shop, laughter bubbling up in my chest. I rode like I had wings, my heart soaring as fast as my wheels. I raced through town, the wind whipping through my hair, feeling invincible. Somewhere along the way, I passed the park. That's when I saw him. A man sitting on a bench, watching me with a knowing smile. "One day, you'll do the same for someone else. Trust me." I didn't understand what he meant. Not yet. But I would. That summer, that bike was my whole world. I rode it everywhere, to the corner store, the baseball field, the creek at the edge of town. I raced the neighbor kids and won. I discovered shortcuts I never knew existed. I felt like the king of the road. Of course, not every ride went smoothly. There was the time I misjudged a turn and ended up in Mrs. Thompson's rose bushes. Or the time I tried to ride with no hands and nearly took out Mr. Abernathy's mailbox. And let's not forget the legendary disaster of trying to jump a homemade ramp, which ended with me flat on my back, staring at the sky while my best friend laughed so hard he couldn't breathe. But even with the occasional scrape and bruise, that bike was the greatest thing that had ever happened to me. And yet, the mystery of who had bought it gnawed at me. I asked my parents. "Not us," Dad said, shaking his head. "I asked Mr. Henry." "I already told you, kid." They wanted to stay anonymous. I even asked my best friend Tommy, just in case he had somehow struck gold overnight. "Dude, do I look like a millionaire?" he scoffed. No one knew. Or if they did, they weren't telling me. One day while riding through the park, I spotted the man on the bench again, the one who had spoken to me that first day. He was flipping through a newspaper, looking like he had all the time in the world. I skidded to a stop. "Hey, mister." He lowered the paper, peering at me with eyes that held a quiet sort of knowing. "Enjoying your ride?" I nodded. "Did you?" I hesitated. "Did you buy me this bike?" He smiled, folding his newspaper. "Does it matter?" That was the second time I had heard those words. I frowned. "Yeah, it does." He chuckled. "Let's just say someone did for you what someone once did for them." I didn't fully understand what he meant. I was just a kid. Things like cycles of kindness weren't something I had wrapped my head around yet. But something about the way he said it, like it wasn't just about me, made me pause. Before I could say anything else, the man stood up, gave me a nod, and walked away. I never saw him again, but his words stayed with me, even when I didn't fully grasp them. It would be 60 years before I realized just how right he was. Decades passed, and life carried me forward like the wheels of that old red Schwinn. I grew up. My dreams changed. I traded my bicycle for a car, then for a career, then for a family. Life had a way of moving fast, and before I knew it, my hair had turned gray, my hands had grown rough with time, and the boy who once raced through town had become an old man walking its quiet streets. The world changed, too. The little corner shop where I had once pressed my nose against the window was now a coffee shop. The park had fewer kids playing, more people looking down at their phones. And Mr. Henry's bike shop, long gone. But some things never change. One crisp autumn afternoon, I found myself strolling down Main Street, enjoying the simple pleasure of a cool breeze and the crunch of fallen leaves beneath my feet. Retirement had given me plenty of time for walking, for reflecting. That's when I saw him. A boy, no older than 12, standing outside the new bike shop, staring through the glass with the same look I once had. His hands were stuffed into the pockets of a jacket that was too thin for the weather. His shoes were scuffed, the laces uneven. But it was his eyes that got me. That quiet longing, that silent wish for something just out of reach. I followed his gaze. A sleek blue bicycle sat in the window, polished and perfect under the store lights. And suddenly I was 12 years old again, standing in that very same spot, staring at a bike that felt like a dream too big for a boy like me. For a long moment, I just stood there. It was like looking into a mirror stretched across time. Then I heard the words, as if they had been whispered straight into my ear. "One day, you'll do the same for someone else. Trust me." I didn't even hesitate. Stepping into the shop, I walked straight to the counter. A young woman, probably in her 20s, looked up with a polite smile. "That blue bike in the window," I said. "I'd like to buy it." She nodded, punching a few keys into the register. "Great choice. Is it a gift?" I glanced outside. The boy was still there, still staring, his small fingers gripping the edge of his jacket. I smiled. "Yes, but I don't want him to know it's from me." She hesitated, raising an eyebrow. "You sure? We can leave a note." "No note," I said gently. It had to be just like it was for me. A mystery. A little bit of magic in an ordinary world. She studied me for a moment, then nodded. "All right, we'll make it happen." As I handed over my credit card, I felt something shift inside me. Like I had stepped into a role I had unknowingly been waiting for my entire life. Minutes later, as I stepped outside, I heard the store owner call the boy in. He hesitated, glancing around in confusion before disappearing inside. I didn't wait to see his reaction. I already knew. And that was enough. That night, I sat on my porch, rocking gently in my chair, watching the sky shift from gold to navy. The air was crisp, carrying the distant scent of burning wood and fallen leaves. The kind of night that makes you nostalgic for things you can't quite put into words. Then the phone rang. "Grandpa." It was my grandson, Jake. "Hey there, kiddo," I said, leaning back. "What's on your mind?" "I just wanted to hear one of your stories." I smiled. "I've told you all my good ones." "Tell me again," he insisted. "The one about the bike." I hesitated for a moment, staring out at the street. Then softly I began. I told him everything. The red Schwinn. Mr. Henry. The mysterious man on the park bench. The words I never forgot. And then I told him about today. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Jake asked, "So, did you ever find out who bought you the bike?" I smiled. "No, and I don't think I was ever supposed to. But don't you want to know?" I thought about it, about how, for years, I had searched for an answer, thinking that knowing would somehow complete the story. But now I understood. "It doesn't matter who started it, Jake," I said. "What matters is that it keeps going." He was quiet for a moment. Then, in a soft voice, he asked, "Do you think that kid today will try to find out about you?" I chuckled. "Maybe. But one day, when he's older, he'll see another kid staring at a bike through a window. And when that day comes," Jake finished the sentence for me, "he'll do the same for someone else." Exactly. I could hear him thinking on the other end of the line. Then finally he said, "That's kinda cool, Grandpa." I laughed. "Yeah, kid. It really is." As we said our goodnights and I hung up the phone, I sat there for a while, just listening to the quiet. For the first time in years, I felt something settle deep in my chest. A sense of peace, of belonging, of connection. A thread stretching through time, linking me to people I'd never met, to kindnesses I'd never understand. I had spent my whole life wondering why a stranger had done something so selfless for me. And in the end, the answer was simple. Because someone had once done the same for them. And now, I had done the same for someone else. Maybe that's how kindness works, like a wheel always turning, always moving forward. And if we're lucky, we get to be a small part of keeping it spinning.